and a phrase I've used quite a bit, and I'm sure I borrowed it from someone else, is 5 years from now just became now. So stewardship, first of all, in terms of COVID, where our first job was to get home and get home safe, and we've been at home quite successfully since March 18th, 2020. So getting up to a year, and I think we'll go over the year of home working. And then the second thing we did was respond to customer needs. And that's been really in sort of two ways. One was in helping churches and charities who were struggling. So we've worked on helping them fundraise, helping them rearrange mortgages, helping them with furloughing and payroll issues, advice, guidance, all of those things, just really helping organizations that were pretty stretched get through a difficult time. And then the second area where we helped was on running a series of campaigns which we called Rapid Response Fund 1, where we raised, with the help of a group of philanthropists, £5 million or thereabouts in 100 days. So we raised it and distributed it to 100 causes in 100 days. And that was a sort of an initial boost, which helped serve over 2 million meals, over 1 million acts of fellowship, 100 women in Christian refuges from fleeing from domestic violence. You know, you name it, we help the church provide that into its communities. And we're just planning. And then we did a second rapid response fund, which was a more global thing to say, well, what's the church doing globally about COVID? So we heard voices from Beirut, Yemen, India, Brazil, all the places that have really been hit hard during this season. And I think the final thing is we've regrouped now, and we're starting to do what we're calling internally Rapid Response Fund 3, but really how can we now help the church really step forward in this season to bring healing and revival to many communities across the country, and that's going to be much bigger than the previous two. COVID-19 certainly has changed my vision for stewardship going forward. I mean, but not as much as I might have imagined it would change it. So I knew God was strengthening stewardship. I could see that in my first year. We grew 80% and bought a little bank, and God was leading us to really become much more strong and much more powerful in our community, much more visible. And I must say, my vision was that there was going to be some sort of rather nice revival in 22-23, and God was strengthening us for that. He wasn't. He was strengthening us for this time of difficulty and challenge. And we went into this crisis in 2020 stronger than we'd ever been as an organization. And I think we emerge in a different way. And a phrase I've used quite a bit, and I'm sure I borrowed it from someone else, is 5 years from now just became now. Everything seemed to accelerate really quickly. And so the vision really has been to sort of say, well, we thought we were going to be here in 5 years' time. How do we do that now? How do we use the best technology, the latest thinking to really address the problems of today, and those problems and issues and opportunities being hugely accelerated in what they're doing. So you'll see us revive, rebrand really much more quickly than we would have, because a new world is going to emerge post-COVID, and we've got to embrace that world, not hanker after the world that's passed. And I think if I said one thing is I'm even more encouraged by what I see the role of the churches in our communities, in our society, of that being an expanded, deepened and broadened role going on over the next season, and that stewardship, the church is stepping forward, and we must step forward with it into a new normal, whatever that might look like. I think we've learned lots of lessons during 2020. And it'll take us a while to really, bring them on board. But I would say that we've learned that work can look very different. So we've been working from home, I think, really successfully since March, and it's often the opposite problems you have to the ones you think you have in a time of crisis. Our main issue has been stopping people working, getting them to take breaks, making sure they have weekends, rather than what I think a lot of people imagined was people would be demotivated working from home. I think we are blessed by a particularly fine group of people and a strong mission. So maybe others are having different difficulties, but I think we've learned an awful lot of how to maintain our culture and our community and our momentum in these sorts of circumstances. And I really do think that will change who we are and how we work going forwards. It's also, we've learned how to serve the church ever better. So, we've really reached out in the various initiatives we've run to help churches in online giving, where they were more physical in that. We've learned an awful lot about those sorts of things, and then how to raise money for the church, or help them raise money rather than us raise it. And we've also learned how to serve our donors and givers much more personally, using the phone, email, and the internet. So I think we've learned an awful lot. I think a big lesson from 2020, and it's even getting bigger in 2021, is the role that stewardship can play alongside charities as quite often a sort of big brother to small charities and a helper to large charities. And what we're seeing is smaller charities who really have very big impact in their communities, but find it really hard to attract the resources they need, can come to us, and we can come alongside them in a very powerful way. For instance, in the Rapid Response Fund I've talked about before, we came alongside a lot of smaller organizations, and actually what we found was the encouragement, advice on all sorts of aspects, from fundraising to technology to stewardship to who knows what, was more valuable than the money that came along. So actually the fellowship we're providing charity to charity was more valuable. And we also created certain opportunities where larger charities were mentoring smaller charities in how they could use all sorts of aspects to really help them scale up, grow up, mature, and resource themselves appropriately. I think we found that, for instance, in the Rapid Response Fund, we found that we raised £5 million in 100 days and distributed it in those 100 days, but almost all of those projects then carried on and attracted more because of the encouragement and support that they'd received. And so that 5 million could probably be multiplied several times in terms of the impact of the encouragement, the support, the advice, and the guidance and the mentoring. I think with also the network of the whole Christian community working together, we're seeing some really powerful examples where different denominations, different charities, and different networks can bring more holistic solutions to bear. So it's, imagine a food bank where you can get debt advice and job advice, mental health support and other things. That's often requiring combinations of different skills and experiences to be brought together, and we're seeing that as well. So there's an awful lot that what the charities and churches and stewardship working together can bring in combination in Christian fellowship. Giving world is changing, and I think the Christian community is at the forefront of giving changing, where, I mean, in essence, what we've seen during COVID-19 is donors saying, I want to give, but I don't know what to give to. I don't know quite where to place my treasure, talent and time to have the biggest impact on the world, bringing hope, gospel hope and practical help. So how do I do this well has been a question that's resonated, and I think Stewardship and other organizations are now trying to answer that question. And I think that's going to be a trend that goes through. People are going to be asking more questions and be more committed to their giving and want to be more thoughtful, more prayerful and more strategic. That requires quite a different response from the charity sector, to look at what we're saying to donors about the impact we're having, and to have a different dialogue. I mean, what I notice is that high net worth donors, for instance, want a relationship. They want to come into relationship with churches, charities, and others they support, and get information 2 ways and prayers and blessings 2 ways. The truth is, we all want that, and so therefore, what you'll see us do is continually develop technologies and social media and other things so that relationship can be brought into the giving experience far more. In the old days when I started, you'd set up your direct debit for X amount a month to a charity that you heard. You essentially got a quarterly magazine if you were fortunate, and you heard very little else. I don't think that's what people are going to want going forward. They're going to want to be connected and to hear much more, and therefore giving will become much more part of their ongoing daily lives. It should be a joyful thing that expresses your commitments, your beliefs, and it is a fundamental part of our walk with Jesus. In 2021, I think we need to be more generous as a nation than we've ever been before. I mean, the truth is that the many churches, charities, and mission workers are seeing that the need is very, very high as our nation seeks to, heal and revive, and the resourcing is not sufficient to really meet the needs that are out there. And I get asked again and again, well, shouldn't the government do more? But I look at a government that's maxed out in terms of supporting a health service, getting kids back into school, and all the other things government does. And the huge amount going into those massive, civil engineering pieces. But the rest of society needs something much more intimate. And I think the equation is a simple one where the communities have to revive, they have to step forward, so that society can heal and revive and the new normal can emerge. Historic precedents for this are enormous. Communities have only ever revived in this country when the church has thrived. And so I think the church has to thrive. I think that's God's will for it. And the issue that puts in terms of generosity where we work is if community has to step forward and the church needs to step forward, then generosity should step forward. And I think this is a time, if you do have a generous heart, to invest. because this new normal could be radically better than the society we left behind in 1919. We can make a real shift forward in the church, in our communities, and it could just feel so much better if we did that. So I think this is a pivot moment. We grab it and move forward. And so therefore I'd encourage increased generosity, and Stewardship will do its bit so that donors do know what they can give to, how they can direct their hearts to make their choices. But I'd very much encourage you to look. There's an awful lot of good stuff happening out there. I mean, the church is regarded by many secular commentators as really, and I'll overstate for effect, a bunch of little old ladies bringing tea and sympathy. We're not. We're a vibrant part. We're 5 million people in 50,000 community organizations in every community. And we're delivering world-class programs in hunger alleviation, debt crisis management, mental health support. We're helping vulnerable youth, you name it. We have programs that can really make a difference. And I think we are making a difference. And I think, therefore, it's a time to step forward. And the early church did this right at the beginning of the Christian church. We stepped forward during the plagues of the 2nd century, and we're seen to bring a very different perspective. It's in our DNA to do this. And so that was my message of generosity. Support the church.